Good morning. As you can see, we were secretly vying for longest presentation title. I think we're at least, in serious contention. But we wanted to share with you, our experience from how do you actually, introduce systems engineering at traditional organizations who have developed a certain level of success, and hope you might find this interesting. So, obviously, any systems engineering presentation needs structure. So we want to briefly introduce you to who we are, give a brief overview about the paper and its relevance, then share with you our generic model that we find over many cases that we've consulted on and observed to be successful, and then the really interesting part, hopefully, some concrete and recent case studies and the learnings we might take from it. Then a bit generalization, what is the wider context? Why do we believe that this is applicable beyond, the companies and industries that we've shared? And then we would go to Q&A. So very briefly about me, Sebastian Ritter. I'm a principal at Unity, 15 years of expertise in senior leadership roles. From what Tanya shared, I think I've been in every one of these bubbles. Most recently, not so much in the rest of engineering bubble. I have helped with systems transformation and systems engineering transformation, particularly in automotive OEMs. Also done a spell in aircraft maintenance, repair, and overhaul. And traditionally, I have a program management background and also have led digital transformation initiatives. And for my sins, I also can't seem to get rid of things related to PLM and product data management. But this means, I always ask the questions about, how do you actually keep track of these models and changes and make them useful and keep them valid?
My name is Welf. I'm coming from Dortmund, Germany. And at Unity, I'm head of business area. So I'm responsible for specific key accounts within the automotive industry. And my background is industrial engineering. And there I'm doing a lot of projects regarding product development and regarding systems engineering. And I'm really happy here to be here and to give you some insights about our previous project experience and give you some lessons learned probably with your challenges you have right now. 70% of business transformation are failing. And if we have a look at digital transformation, it is even worse. And systems engineering transformation normally are digital transformation because somehow we want to get more digital in development. So we want to do model-based systems engineering. We want to create system models in Cameo. We want to use our product data somehow. And we want to verify early and digital. We want to validate early, and so on and so forth. So systems engineering for itself, it is a digital transformation. And it's then more than just rework processes from our consulting perspective and just rework methods and provide them. It's a way bigger because it's a strategic decision to stick to a transformation program and introduce systems engineering. And therefore, that's our daily business, and therefore we identified several key success factors, and we would like to share them today. And we developed a kind of a transformation approach. So approach you can follow. It's more or less a step-by-step approach. But one thing ahead, it's iteratively. So you cannot go step 1, step 2, step 3. You need to rework each and every step if you're done with the next one. So it's an iterative approach. What do you see here? You see on the first step, it's all about a vision. So you need kind of a target picture you're heading to. So you need to think about, I'm not introducing systems engineering because everyone is doing it and it's a good idea probably to do it as well. You need a clear vision, a target picture behind it, and you probably don't have only one reason to implement systems engineering. You have several factors, and systems engineering is one. And all these needs to change, to transform, need to find their way into a target picture. A target picture which you can then communicate to your organization and which you can link to your company strategy. Because like I was saying, systems engineering implementation is a strategic decision. And it lasts longer than a year or two. It's more with a wider view of 5 to 10 years. So keep that in mind to always have the strategy to implement. And the strategy or the vision should address a why. So why are we doing this? It should address a how. So how are we going to do it? And it should address a what. So what are we actually doing? The second step, that's the logical architecture, because we need something that gives us orientation, that gives us a structure we can use to do the transformation program, but as well we can use for the future product development. And this logical architecture is based then mainly on the product, on an abstract level. I think you're quite common to this approach, a logical architecture. And with this architecture, with the logical abstract level, we can then take care of the most and important interfaces, as well regarding processes, organizational structures like meetings and decision boards, roles, and so on and so forth. And for sure, in the technical development, we can then define the technical solution for these specific and important interfaces. After the logical structure, we have steps like, okay, we need to rework processes, we need to rework some methods to provide to the engineers, and we need to think about roles, which are probably necessary, or probably we need to adapt the program organization or the project organization, and maybe sometimes as well the line organization. Even in strict top-down organizations, it's quite useful and helpful to get more responsibility into the project if you have the same logical or the same organizational structure than the projects. So that's as well often a good thing in strict top-down organizations. One thing here as well, to always think together processes and IT. Because if you're not doing it, you have a stack of that paper and nice model processes, and you're wondering why the engineers are not following the processes and nothing is changed and same behavior than before. Yeah, that's because the engineers are using tools. And so you need to think it, please, always together. The fifth step is then to really plan well the implementation or the application into the project and have kind of a really good plan, a roadmap, and think over more projects. So it's not the one and all project which is coming up next. It's probably the next 3 or the next 5 to get the steps or to get the transformation on a good mode into the implementation. But enough theory, so let's talk about actual projects.
All right. So we'd like to share with you 4 case studies and then summarize them as well at the end and saying, okay, what were the particular success factors or points to consider along this model that Welf just shared. So we are going to look at a very successful manufacturer of high-end engineered product, let's call it like that. I think a decent size of companies with a massive R&D department, a supercar manufacturer. I'm actually quite proud of my job of hiding the supercar behind that icon. And then Welf's going to share something around domestic equipment manufacturer. My sons would probably say this almost looks like an Insta logo, but there you go. Also a decent sized company and a very big, transportation equipment manufacturer, and that is red for a reason because, there's probably more lessons to draw on what not to do, which is also quite insightful. Right. So we structured this sort of being brief outline of the problem. Then I'll share, okay, what the approach was that we've taken, and then the solution and the results achieved. And yeah, you can read the summary for yourself. I'll highlight the points that are pertinent to this. So the engineered products manufacturer, very, very successful, and they knew it. Yeah? So they were proud of their products. They also recognized, though, that their means to deal with increasing complexity was not at the same pace at which they had to deal with the products becoming ever more complex. So they had a corporate slogan, a statement that systems engineering was important, but they had no answer to the question, okay, so what do we do first, how do we do it, and what comes next? They weren't required to improve drastically in the short term because their product portfolio was successful, but one of their managers described it as this: there's always this nagging dread that your hardware is developed and you integrate it, and then you get all kinds of error messages. So that was the state they were in. And I think from our side, an issue was as well, they were very hands-on. Yeah? So it was not about strategy. That is a word they do not like at all. Roadmap was a no-no word as well. It was basically sort of, how you would imagine a race team to be. Yeah. So, okay, you fix it because the race is there, and okay, you do it under pressure, and enough late night shifts will usually sort out the problem. Okay. So, what did we develop with them? So we worked basically from the end. So, okay, how does it look like if you have implemented systems engineering successfully? Yeah? So what does it look like? What factors do you observe? And how would this pan out along the logical architecture? So the obvious answer was, okay, everything is basically done according to SE. Okay, right. Okay, so how do we start then? Yeah. So how does this break down? We also, and you see an image of, okay, what the end roadmap or a state of that roadmap almost looks like there as well. That in the beginning, and as my colleague shared, we did not focus at all who does what and what organization owns what. Because in our experience, this leads to endless discussions about the self-perceptions of people and their role, and it doesn't get them on processes and tools. What was also, something that we were very careful in brokering, that we got a real promoter and an advocate for systems engineering as the transformation project lead client side. So someone who wanted to do this, who saw the opportunity, who could bring people together. Yeah? So obviously there's always a part of self-motivation, but it was also the intrinsic motivation to help this topic to succeed. We did this, I think not at the bottom level, so at the coal face, but we were very careful to select, or to secure management support. So we used the strategic target that the company had given themselves to, okay, right, if this was your annual target, how would you basically justify that you had it, and decompose basically this in language and in steps that were conducive to a person in a leadership role. Thus, we developed a roadmap to define, the uplifts in systems engineering maturity. So you see system level depth from top to bottom in the 16 square matrix, and then sort of the core disciplines along the systems V, so requirements, architecture, integration, verification, and validation, then on the top axis. And the more blue, obviously, the more systems engineering you do. And we sought agreement to split this by project over a longer period to make it manageable. What was also important is, obviously, sooner or later you touch colleagues and organizational units that have a responsibility for these process steps and outcomes. Via the project lead client side, we responded to their worries and concerns to make it theirs, and to make sure that they would carry the solution forward And that was actually quite a departure for that company because they haven't done change management before. Yeah? So we had to massage this in, and it proved really valuable. Alongside this, the emphasis in the first step was not to deliver hard results, but really, to get them open towards using new methodology, new tools. I think the in-person lecture outlined, how important it is to meet people in their language, and even, or particularly probably successful engineers, they know a proven tool set to themselves, and evolving this can be quite hard. Okay, so, but taking the target, securing management support, and building a roadmap basically were key ingredients, along with having, someone who actually drives this with our support. Now, the supercar manufacturer. So a small company, part of a conglomerate, no previous experience with systems engineering, and very component oriented. Yeah? So they knew how to make parts, and they knew how to put the parts together. Circuits and functions, bit of a different thing. Now they had to respond to a customer need to actually offer some form of autonomous driving functionality. I'm not sure how many of you have been in a supercar, but I hope you believe me, it's quite difficult to park them, in reverse gear, because the visibility is not great. So as a minimum, you need to have a camera and an infotainment screen. So first things to go wrong. Yeah? If you want the car to park themselves or itself, that's a whole different challenge. Yeah? And this is meant by, they wanted some autonomous driving, SAE level drive product features on offer. So that brings with it the need to actually certify these features. And that meant, they needed to overhaul their processes and methods to demonstrate traceability and to demonstrate compliance. And again, as you would probably imagine a supercar manufacturer, they're not waiting for the race to start. They already started doing something. And try to wrestle this topic, with what they knew or had heard, and build some form of approach. So we came in, reviewed what they had done, and integrated the initial work and realigned it where necessary. And one of the great questions there was, because they were part of a conglomerate, there was some systems engineering methodology for a company 10 times, 20 times the size of that particular company. So they needed to figure out quickly, what do we actually need to do, and how do we do it with one person doing 3 jobs, and not, a whole department of 50 people doing 1 job. This is where we helped orientate them to scale down the methodology to something that was suitable for their organizational context. What was really helpful is to have a concrete need. So they had this product, they wanted to bring it to market. It was clear that, something needed to happen quickly, and we could leverage this urgency to basically build momentum in the organization. And I think another element there was, in a small company where everyone is basically busy to keep the product running, it's really difficult, to do formal training sessions with 20-odd people, because they are then out for 5 days at a time, or 10 days or 15 days, and not doing productive work. So we had to tailor the training approach to provide basically ad hoc upskilling sessions and do some bite-sized sessions to keep people basically productive, but also, mitigate the constraints of their availability. So what does this mean? So effectively, we provided some orientation along the logical architecture and the methodology that was to use. So basically, where is actually that functionality that they needed to certify? Which systems are affected? Where should they go first? Who needed to do what? how do the roles need to change, who is affected, and basically bring this to a conclusion with them. To give that orientation provided them basically with the confidence that they were on the right track, and that reassurance was really important. A side effect of this, because they had started themselves with an internal working group of middle managers, was that we continued this. So, I mean, it wasn't some other sort of strange body taking over, but actually, I mean, realigning what they did and helped them to create the solution they needed to own. Not being affected, but being basically in control of what you in the end were tasked with implementing. That again reinforced the commitment loop, and I mean, not so much that it was tangible difference in terms of, okay, this project having generous resource allocated to it, but the sign from the board of management that at least some systems engineering resource was agreed helped to demonstrate that this wasn't, I mean, another backpack project, another backpack role, but really something that was important for the future success and strategy of the company, proved crucial. So all of this wouldn't have been possible if there wasn't, I mean, a need and a business case around, okay, we need to get this product to market, and we probably should have started yesterday, but the closest thing we can do now is start today. On the right-hand side, I mean, some examples of how we help them structure this. The little squares in the systems, we basically identify the key artifacts that needed to be achieved at a certain time and whether they were owned or what the process was of describing them and defining, okay, what the process was of achieving them. And that was one of the key elements where a very complex methodology needed to be simplified and, as you said, tailored to the organizational context. I don't know, do you want to add something? Or? Okay.
Perfect. Case study C. So here we are at a domestic device manufacturer. So kind of a mid-sized company producing washing machine, coffee maker, and so on and so forth. And the situation here was, I would say, quite normal. It is a company with more than a century of legacy, so the R&D structure and department was grown quite complex. They had silos created. They had not one single point of truth. They had several point of truth, and they were always escalating to get a decision. And the knowledge was not within one database or more database. It was more in the heads of the engineers and heads of the experts. And if one expert were leaving, then they have a struggle, or they are struggling to cover somehow the gap and things like this. So quite a normal, in Germany, mid-sized company with a more or less a good status, a good legacy, and they were quite in a normal and good phase. So it was not a bad phase where they were struggling. So they were then thinking about, we kind of have the feeling that we can improve, that we want to improve, even from the management side. They had the feeling, okay, we can do better, and the engineers as well had the feeling, okay, there's potential. We can solve problems easier or things like this. So let's think about a kind of a transformation we can transform or we can do. And therefore, how did we start then? We start with to get the management together, all more or less in one room regarding or for several workshops we did together with them. And then we discussed objectives for this transformation. And it was more in scope the whole R&D than only systems engineering aspects. So as well some innovations management, technology management, project management, and so on and so forth. So there were several aspects discussed and defined within the objectives. And these objectives, there we had the top management commitment to it and the will to change. And what they managed quite good was to communicate these objectives very good and very hands-on to the employees and to the developers, so that they see really a benefit in following this transformation program. And they developed developing path for each stakeholder group, so that they see a purpose in, okay, or a perspective in, if I'm joining this program, this can be my next career option and things like this. Critical persons were involved quite early and quite intense. So they get directly a seat on the table. They were involved. The input was highly welcome from them. And this, for change management and to support this whole transformation, even for a longer time, they created change teams. So they were a team dedicated to support the change, only the change in the productive projects. So this team was more or less the key user for the systems engineering or the whole digital transformation within the R&D, and they were supporting these practical or these productive projects which should implement processes and implement new role structures and build up competences. So that was kind of a key to this. If you take more or less one message out of this slide, it would be that you need an answer to the question for every employee. You need an answer to the question, what is in for me? So you need to find the motivation of the stakeholder group, and you need to really define a path, a development path, where they can grow and join the transformation program. So that's really organizational change management at its best. You need to ensure for a successful transformation at this point. Then, last case study. Here we are talking about a global player within the transportation business. And like Sebastian was introducing, it's a little bit the bad practice example, but I think we and as well the company still gets a lot of lessons learned out of this. So we would like to share them now, at least to point them out. And situation was here that the company was more or less already a little bit struggling, a little bit in a bad phase. So the quality of the products was not that high. Time to market was not shorter. It was more longer and longer. And they were, like I said, in quite a bad phase. So they said, okay, we need to change something. We want to do a transformation program, and we want to do it in 2 to maximum 3 years. And therefore, they ramped up a quite huge project organization. So they called it the PMTO factory, so Process, Method, Tool, and Organization Factory, and ramped up something about 120 to 150 persons, only dedicated to develop processes, to develop methods. And if you ask me, and I'm honest, I would call it the PMO factory, because they were not actually discussing tools with the processes, because they were a head of something responsible for tools, and they were a head of something responsible for the processes, and the program was at the head of something for processes, and they were not really collaborative, and they didn't integrate the tool aspect into the program. So there was really one mistake. So that's why I'm saying discuss these things together, because in the end, the IT tools, that's what the engineers are using. Next thing is, they were, or what they did good was, they implemented the topic really in the company strategy. So systems engineering was part of the company strategy. That's one reason why they're still sticking on it. So they're still working on it because it was a strategic decision. So that's something they did well. Nevertheless, they didn't met the timeline of 2 to 3 years. They're still working on it, but the strategic decision was within the company strategy. And what they then, on the other hand, missed a little bit was the communication to the organization. So in the organization, the engineers we were working with, they were always the question, okay, is this really the right thing? Why are we doing this? Isn't there another opportunity we can do? So this communication about the why are we doing this? Why is this necessary? Was not really good or not really strict. And one thing, an additional thing they planned quite well was the step 5, how can I get it into the actual project? How can I get all the processes and methods delivered into a productive project? Therefore, they thought about, okay, we want to have kind of a pilot approach so that there's a dedicated team. And this team is there for getting the processes, implement the processes on their actual business, daily business, and giving feedback back to the PMTO factory, and they can rework then the new processes. The thought was quite good. The implementation was not that good because this whole pilot was not based on the needs of the project. So the project was right now struggling with, okay, we need to define the system and we need to define a system specification and do requirements management and think about architecture management. And for example, the PMTO factory was designing the new release management process and the new quality assurance process and gave it to the actual project, and they were saying, okay, I have nothing to release right now, please help me with requirements management. And so they had a lack of communication and success with this feedback loop they initially planned. So, and if you take 2 things out of this slide, it would be, the first thing is you need to give the transformation the time its needs. Yeah. And therefore, we are talking about people, we are talking about organizations, and this mind change often needs time. So give it the time it needs. And the second thing is that if you're implementing the processes and new IT tools, whatever, you need to have a close feedback loop. So close feedback loop between the people who are implementing and the people who are developing the processes and methods and new tool landscape, whatever, so that they can communicate directly. In best case, one person, 50% in the project, in the actual product project, 50% in the project regarding the transformation for processes and so on, that you have, or that you ensure really this closed feedback loop, and please do it on the base of the needs out of the actual project, because there you want to have a short-term benefit, you want to have short-term achievements out of the project, and that's the only way you can do it if you really base it on the needs of the project within the product development. Okay, then let's shortly sum this up. Here you see right now our big picture regarding systems engineering implementation. You see the steps 1 to 5 from the beginning as well within this picture. So just to remember, on the left side, number 1, the strategic topic, the vision, the target picture. Number 2 is the logical architecture, so the structure giving element for the transformation, but as well for any further development projects. Then you have the transformation projects addressing competences, process and IT, placed together, and organizational parts, like as well, to point it out again, change management, so organizational change management, and this always at the first step. So if you're thinking about or talking about target picture, you need to take care about stakeholder management, organizational change management, and then everything ends up in the step number 5 in the piloting or the rollout planning. Sebastian, could you please add our key messages?
Very briefly, because I'm well aware that I'm the last thing that's between us and lunch. But thanks for staying so far. Yeah. So one thing, and it has been said today before, common sense is not common. Yeah. So this may not be hugely surprising, but is unfortunately, something we observe. In terms of systems engineering introduction, it's very important to link this to some concrete and long-term business objective, because it will take time, and if it doesn't align to where the company wants to go, there's no hope to successfully, go on the systems engineering journey. That's the why. It needs to be linked to, where the company is going. And we've seen this probably in most companies that we've presented cases on here, that this was something to actually allocate resources internal and external to this to go on the path. Then in terms of logical architecture, you need some kind of orientation, where do you focus your efforts first, Because in our experience, a big bang deployment, and now we're going to use SysML diagrams to describe everything from tomorrow, is not very probably to be met with success. Having some form of architecture is good to help the conversation, who's affected first, who's next, which project really needs what in order to pilot this new approach, because you don't want to redocument knowledge that's already there. You want to focus on the new or on the safety critical stuff, in our experience. And we've seen this particularly in case studies A and B, to really use the logical architecture or to develop or refine it in order to help that conversation and get traction. 3, it's a diverse range of industries and company sizes, so you need to customize the processes to some degree. A very elaborate methodology that works at a multinational conglomerate is not suitable for a small-scale manufacturer, whether it's supercars or industrial equipment. I think one of the questions we probably hear most often, when is it enough? When can we stop doing this? And we need to develop an answer for this collaboratively with our client. Then you need the leadership involved. And key employee selecting is absolutely crucial, otherwise this gains no traction if there's no internal promoter. And this is really crucial to success to also, get the critical voices integrated. And lastly, and we've seen this particularly in a not so good use case of company D, if you overtax the organization with what you want to achieve in any amount of time, you will still spend the amount of time introducing system engineering. Only the gradient will be much steeper because you're walking against the resistance. But there's only so much force feeding that in our experience is possible. You can do quite some if you align the steps and in the right way. So with that, last word, last slide, we have observed this not only in automotive, but also in other key industries, machinery and plant industry, engineering we serve. We also have a fair, decent spell in aviation, aerospace and defense. I think the added complexity is obviously if you talk multinational sites, and what has been observed before by Tanya, you get, language differences and cultural differences across nationalities, regions that add to this. And with that, I'm looking forward to your questions.
Well, Sebastian, thank you for that. So I think we've got time for 1 or 2 questions. If you have more questions, I'm sure the gentleman will be available in lunch to answer any more questions and follow-up discussions.
Hello, Mike Henshaw from Loughborough University. So thanks very much for the insights, it's very interesting. But I want to go back right to the very beginning of your presentation where I think it was Welf asserted that 70% of transformations fail. And you went on to say that it takes 5 or 10 years to realise it. Could you say a little bit about where the 70% came from? So what are the metrics? What are the things that you measured? What were your criteria for making that assertion? And my reason for asking the question is, if I go along to the board and say, I want you to spend a lot of money on a major disruption, but you've got a 70% chance of failure, then I think you might get a rather negative answer to that.
Thank you for that question. I think I know, we borrowed that quote from McKinsey. I think it's something you find quite easy in the internet as well, that, unfortunately, most transformations are not successful. I think the analogy of the burning platform usually comes to mind. You need to jump, but you don't know quite whether, where you land is safe. Yeah? And unfortunately, that is the reality. I think the planning is usually a different outcome that is intended. But yeah, we can't close our eyes that unfortunately if you try things, things will fail. That's part of engineering as well.
Yep, thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Nancy Dante, and I'm a Senior Systems Engineer at Northrop Grumman, UK. I wanted to ask a question regarding case study C, where you mentioned the lack of information being shared and information being localized. I'd say in my current company, we're experiencing a similar problem, and with it being document-based, we have decided to write management plans to try and at least centralize the information and share it with most of the project team. And I wanted to ask your opinion on management plans, because I've seen where they work well if they're regularly updated. However, if they become very fluffy and woolly, people don't necessarily read them and go straight away to the person who has most of the knowledge.
Thank you for that question. If I understand this correctly, a management plan kind of summarizes, what the process outcomes are that are to be achieved. Okay, you're nodding, okay. So I think in our experience, this broadly aligns to what we've trialed here. You need some form of process blueprint to break down, what an organizational unit that's the holder of information does to enable that conversation. This is how we broke down the silos in this case study. And then basically from, what is the outcome then, who helps realize this outcome? Are they working how they should be? Is there ways to improve? How would you design your own work then again to drive this forward? The methodology seems to be aligning to what you describe. We used a little bit of a different pathway to foster collaboration, not through documents, but to actually have a change story. And you might call them heroes or advocates to actually introduce the new way of working to instill the ownership this way. But management and management plans are a key component in this too.
Yeah, probably one thing to add, you can or you should add things regarding your goals into the management more or less contracts as well, to have them strict, transforming and pushing behind these things, and to have the commitment on the side. I think you experienced that yourself at your previous companies. A helpful thing as well. Yeah.
Okay, Bill, Sebastian, thank you again very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.